Okay, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a match that literally shook the sports world to its core. We're talking about the breathtaking highlights of the historic 2026 FIFA World Cup upset, where Norway somehow defeated Brazil 2-1. If you follow international football at all, you already know the sheer magnitude of this result. So we're going to break down exactly how this happened. We'll look at the pivotal moments, the insane pressure, and the absolute willpower that led to one of the most astonishing outcomes in tournament history. Let's get right into it. We're jumping straight into the action with this explosive line from the broadcast booth, one that pretty much defined the end of the match. Haaland has blown away Brazil. Wow. That single sentence perfectly captures the absolute shockwave sent through the sports world, right? We're not just talking about a lucky win here. We're talking about a performance from Norway's star striker that was so dominant it completely dismantled a footballing superpower. Part 1, High Stakes in New Jersey, the clash of expectations. So before a single ball was even kicked, the psychological battle lines were totally drawn. It was your classic David versus Goliath setup. For Brazil, the commentators pointed out this natural demand to win. For a nation with 5 World Cup titles, victory isn't just a hope, It's an expectation that's practically hardwired into their DNA. But then you have Norway. They weren't burdened by the pressure of defending a trophy. Instead, they had this burning desire to smash their glass ceiling. This wasn't just another game. It was a desperate bid to shatter their historical limits and prove they absolutely belonged with a global elite. Moving on to part 2, defensive heroics keep hope alive, surviving the onslaught. Look, to pull off an upset of this size, first, you literally just have to survive the onslaught. The commentary captured the sheer desperation and the eventual relief perfectly with the call, "What a wonderful save by Nian." When you're facing relentless waves from the Brazilian attack, your goalie simply has to play the game of his life. And Nian did exactly that, stepping up right when it mattered most to keep Norway from drowning early on. Let's actually break down what Nino was up against here. It was this rapid-fire multiplayer sequence. First, a substitute is set free, injecting fresh legs into the play. Then, a really precise pass from Lamb finds Ryan, who lifts this incredibly dangerous ball toward the young phenom Endrick. The whole chaotic sequence culminates in a blistering shot from Bruno Gebraj. It took a massive collective effort from Brazil to create the chance, and a miraculous split-second stop from Ninian to shut it down. But to be fair, the goalkeeper wasn't entirely on his own out there. The whole defensive line was scrambling like crazy. Another defender, N, got across heroically. The broadcast described his intervention as a mix of a sharp reaction and a good guess, which absolutely hits the nail on the head. When you're defending against the chaotic brilliance of Brazil, sometimes tactics just go right out the window. You have to rely on pure instinct and throw your body on the line to block the pressure. And, compounding all that tension were the agonizing near misses and technicalities on the field. The broadcast specifically notes a deflating flag and a Martin decision involving Norway's Soluts. Imagine the emotional whiplash for a second. You're defending for your life, you manage to counter, the ball goes to Soluts, and then boom, the flag goes up, offside. Those are exactly the kinds of mentally draining moments that usually break an underdog's spirit. But amazingly, Norway held their nerve. Part 3, the 10-minute breakthrough. Norway strikes. Okay, so it wasn't just a lucky bounce that got them ahead. It was a beautifully executed 3-step sequence. Step 1, a Norwegian player gets his shoulder up and just brilliantly skips away from his man, totally breaking the defensive line. Step 2, he lifts a perfectly weighted ball up for their talisman, Haaland. And step 3, Haaland, doing what he does best, plungers it toward the goal with absolute authority. Just a textbook play. And the timing? The timing is absolutely everything here. Just 10 minutes. That brilliant strike gave Norway the lead in this pressure cooker environment in New Jersey, with barely 10 minutes left on the ticking clock. Literally 10 minutes separating an underdog from the greatest achievement in their nation's footballing history. Can you even imagine the nerves? The broadcasters could hardly believe what was unfolding in front of them. They declared, "It is literally the case to say they've never had it so good." And it was true. Norway had truly never been in a better, more powerful position on the world stage. They were leading Brazil, and the finish line was right there in sight. Which brings us to part 4, a bizarre late-game intervention. Chaos ensues. But, as any seasoned football fan knows, a wounded giant is the most dangerous kind of opponent. Suddenly, the commentary shifts tone entirely, calling out this completely bizarre intervention on the pitch. Right as the game reaches its absolute boiling point, the structure just completely breaks down. That tactical discipline we saw earlier, gone. It just evaporates into the heavy New Jersey air. This totally baffling moment involved a player who seemingly owed his life to the frantic backpedaling of the goalkeeper, Nian. It really highlights the sheer panic that was setting in on the field. Everyone is suddenly out of position. They're making these desperate lunges, and it's just a chaotic scramble to keep the ball out of the net. It is pure, unadulterated sporting drama.
Finally, Part 5, the greatest Viking victory. History is written.
The climax of this match was a total emotional roller coaster, and this timeline maps it out perfectly. First, Haaland's initial goal to grab the lead. Second, that bizarre, chaotic intervention that threw literally everything into disarray. Third, Haaland, or Haaland as we know the massive star, steps up yet again and wonderfully nails it for a second goal, which basically secures the greatest day ever. But fourth, hold on, because the timeline isn't quite over. Brazil refuses to go down quietly and manages a late retaliation. Let's look really closely at that rapid final push from the South Americans. Domino floats this desperate yet perfect setup into the box, and the legendary Neymar is right there to roll it into the net. It was a brilliant flash of that expected Brazilian magic. But here's the crucial point. The clock had simply run out. It was a consolation goal in the absolute dying seconds. The giant had finally awoken, sure, but it was way too little, way too late. And this brings us to the defining summary of the entire match, captured perfectly by the commentators. The greatest Viking victory. What a masterpiece of an underdog story. Against a team that basically demands victory by their very nature, these determined players from Norway defended heroically, capitalized on their few chances, weathered a totally chaotic storm, and wrote their names into the history books forever. So now that Norway has officially smashed their glass ceiling on the game's biggest stage, I want to leave you with a question to really ponder. How will this historic, paradigm-shifting upset reshape the balance of power in international football going forward? Think about it. When a team like Norway can blow away a giant like Brazil, it proves the old hierarchies are super vulnerable. The beautiful game is changing, and this match in New Jersey might just be the blueprint for the next era of global football. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep an eye on what happens next.